Hi, welcome back to the Spirit's Path. This is Dee, and today's tarot card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot Deck is the King of Bows and the Adder. And when thinking about this card again today, one, it just dropped off, now it's back. So as you're walking down your path, you're in this hearth fire, and you're getting along with the people that are there at that hearth fire. That's that Eight of Bows, right? You've got the Hawk with you, the King of Arrows. That's swift and quick decision-making ability. You still got the King of Vessels with you, okay? And you got the Green Man with you, okay? So you still got that leadership ability, all right? Both the kings are giving you the leadership and advice that you need, along this path. And, even though the adder slipped off to the side, he slipped off to the side because he wasn't too comfortable with, the other people there. He might get stepped on or something like that. But as you, start walking forward, again, he slithers right back up to you. And he lets you know that, he's got that healing power for you. Okay, he's got that take charge ability, that creativity, that passion to be that leader in action, however you want to do it. Okay, and again, he's asking you, where do you need to take charge? Well, yesterday you had that Two of Arrows and injustice. Okay, and you have to make that decision, right? Twos are all about decision making processes, and this is a thought process that needs to be thought out, quickly. Okay, so, what is it that you want to do on your spiritual path where you need to make that quick decision? And sometimes it's just going over somebody's head. Excuse me. So that quick decision that you're making along your spiritual path, whether it's with a significant other, in a relationship, or at work, all right? If somebody tells you something different that doesn't seem equal, all right, or has equanimity into it, right, and seems like it's skewed toward a certain way, all right, with that Two of Arrows, that injustice, you go out there and you discern the truth. All right, you just don't take that word for what your boss or colleagues tell you. Okay, and sometimes you go out and you talk to somebody that's more important. Say, hey, what's the real aspect of this here? So and so wants to do this, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. Let's reallocate resources, all right, to help out the organization, to help out you as well, because you're here for a couple more hours, right? So you take on that leadership ability, and it's not to step on people's toes, but it's to protect yourself, to make sure that everything's equal, okay, moving forward, to make sure that you're there with that like-minded, group of people, okay. And with that that Knight of Arrows, that quick and decisive action, he's sitting there and he's asking you, where do you need to stand up for yourself? All right, when you do that, when you stand up for yourself and you start taking action in your own hands, you become empowered, all right? And people see that empowerment and they understand it. And they want you to be part of that leadership group, okay? The King of Vessels is still down here, and, he's asking you, where is tolerance needed? Sometimes it doesn't make sense to get all emotional about things. Sometimes it just makes sense. You know what? This is the action I'm going to take. I'm going to ask for forgiveness later. And if other people get ticked off about it, guess what? That's on them, all right? You're following your spiritual path with what your intuition is telling you, what where you're discerning your messages, all right? And, you're taking on that leadership role, right? And there's a difference between leadership and management. Leadership, allows people to see how you react in situations. You lead, all right? You motivate, right? You give people enthusiasm, right? You answer their questions, but you make them think, how would you do this? All right? When you manage people, it's more of, hey, just go sweep over there in a corner, or put those boxes of self, on a shelf or whatever. You're managing the people to do the aspects, all right, of what's going on. But when you can lead people into action and have them think for themselves and become, younger leaders as they're growing up in the organization, Then they switch between being that manager of task management to being a leader of, a men or of women or, whatever in that department, where, you are giving them the authority and giving them the empowerment to make the decisions, right? And if they make the wrong decisions, guess what? They've learned, right? There's some knowledge around that. They've gained some wisdom and they move forward. And that's what this adder is all about, okay? He's charismatic. He likes being in a crowd, okay? But he's got that high energy and that wisdom, all right, to go out there and, motivate people, challenge them to do better, right? And, just when he does that, nobody questions his leadership because it's unchallenged, all right? The other question is that he asks is, where is your enthusiasm leading you? All right? If your enthusiasm is leading you to do better on your spiritual path, then you talk to this adder, you talk to the heron, and you say, you know what? How can I move forward in a more direct path? Okay? I want to be quick and decisive in my actions, and when you are, when you touch spirit and you talk to spirit and you listen to your, spirit guides, right? You listen to your intuition, you discern the messages. When you make those decisions, those are leadership decisions. One's in relationships where you sit down with the family and say, hey, look, let's talk about this, that, and the other thing. And they're all, we don't want to talk about that. That's all mushy-gushy, emotional stuff. It's like, no, this needs to get out. We need to talk about this as a family. How do you feel about this? Right? And when you take on that leadership role, you give everybody, a little bit of, I want to say the words equanimity. All right? Where everybody's equal. Everything weighs the same. Okay? But as the leader, you're listening to what's going on. And, and you could do this in a work situation as well. When you ask those questions at work amongst everybody else, within your department, within your group, if you're that leader, how do you feel about this? You might get some different answers than what you think you have. All right? And when you get those answers, now you can pull those people off to the side and say, well, what did you mean by that? Well, I think you could be a better leader by doing this. All right. Didn't realize, let me take that into advisement, right? How would you go about doing that? How would you look at fixing the department? Or how would you look at streamlining this process? You get them involved. You get them enthused into their job again, right? It gives them their passion, their creativity to come to you to ask, hey, I'd like to take on this. Yeah. I understand, give me a project plan. Let's put it together. Let's work forward. If that's in a relationship, at home with your significant other, it's, again, you got to have that plan to put in place. Have that passion to say, hey, look, let's say for this trip to go on vacation. It's communication. It's action. It's passion. And that's what this King of Bows, this adder, represents. So you continue to walk away from that hearth fire. You're walking down the path. And the adder's with you, the hawk's flying above, showing you that higher perspective. And the heron's giving you that wise advice, and the green man, he's walking next to the forest. And he's giving you that nurturing ability. So that's the card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot Deck, the King of Bows and the adder. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, share with others, give me a thumbs up. And this is D for Spirit's Path. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care, God bless, and stay safe, everybody.